This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
Now, 9 to noon, the host of 9 to noon, I think maybe joining us around 10:45 a.m., but in studio, thanks to Standard Heating and Cooling on a weekly basis, when available, you flew. This is impressive, Ben. It was so bad on Sunday against the Steelers. You canceled the flight to London, and you're like, you know what? I need to be in studio on Tuesday. I would rather do that than travel on to see whatever happens with the Browns. No, but all jokes aside, thank you for hanging out in studio.
Absolutely.
Thanks to Standard Heating and Cooling at Ben Goessling via X, covering the Minnesota Vikings for the Star Tribune. And let's start backwards before we move forward. What was it like over there? Just kind of in enduring the debacle at times, a team that, was so, just sadly due to injuries and such, inept on the offensive line. But then you have these moments of greatness, the connections with Jefferson and Addison offensively. Carson goes for 350, but DK for 80, and just kind of playing how things ultimately led their way to a 24-21 Vikings loss. What was it like in Dublin?
Well, the atmosphere was great. I mean, that was the fifth international game I've done, and that was probably the most charged atmosphere of the five I can think of. And some of that was, Steelers fans brought a lot to the table, and there were a lot of Vikings fans there too. So that when you have those two fan bases getting together, it's going to be the floor of that is going to be pretty good. But then I thought the Irish fans were also pretty into it, and
really?
I think there were people that were excited about seeing the game for the first time. The game felt like a bigger deal in Dublin than any of the ones that I've done in London, because London is New York sized kind of thing. It's like 8.8 million people. So, and it's soccer first, soccer second, soccer third in a lot of ways. And those games always feel like, oh yeah, the NFL's here, and there's the pocket of people that are interested in it, but it doesn't feel like it's an event that the whole town is affected by or talking about. That was very different in Dublin. It was much more, you could see that a lot of people were there for the game. A lot of people were talking about the game. A lot of people were talking about the spectacle of the game, I think, in a way that hasn't happened to the same level in London. So that was cool. In the whole atmosphere of it, I thought was a lot of fun. As far as the game itself, I mean, the Vikings offensive line and the injuries that it has and the injuries that it will continue to have and came into the game with in a lot of ways, just affected everything they did. I mean, Carson Wentz, I think, of the 6 sacks, 3 were on 3rd and 9 or longer. And some of that's the effect of the pressure, but also some of that is the lack of production up front putting you in those situations. You're in 3rd and 9 because you're not running the ball effectively early, and they'd done it the week before so well with Jordan Mason. So that had a big effect on things. And then on the other side of the ball, the Steelers just were not in third down very much. I mean, Aaron Rodgers was good at getting rid of the ball quickly. He was productive. They ran the ball, I thought, better than I would have expected with Jaylen Warren being out. But Kenneth Gainwell, a lot of yards after contact, a lot of kind of second effort stuff to either get first downs or keep them in second and short or third and short kind of things. So I thought both lines of scrimmage, the Steelers outplayed the Vikings, and I think that's a big reason why we ended up where we did. Now, does that have to be the way it works every week? No, but they have a lot of injuries to manage through, especially on the offensive line, but also a lot of things going on defensively right now that it just makes it really hard to do what you want to do. And I think they'll have chances to pressure Dylan Gabriel on Sunday, but that Browns front with Myles Garrett and company is really good too. So it's not the type of issue you want to have against these particular teams. And it changes a little bit of the dynamic here where you say, okay, we don't have to go to Pittsburgh and Cleveland. And that was a lot of the thought process of the international games being actually a good thing for the Vikings. But it all depends on how healthy you are when you catch people. And right now, the Vikings are not in a great spot to match up in some ways with these teams and what they do well.
In some ways, it kind of reminds me of 2016.
Yep. The 16 was going to be the number it was in my head, too.
Because Teddy goes down. It's horrific at Winter Park. And maybe the story should just start and end there. However, it doesn't. Spielman goes out and Howie Roseman and the Eagles, they flip Sam Bradford for a first. And they turned that into Derek Barnett, who a year later is sacking Case Keenum. In the NFC title game.
He had the play that iced the Super Bowl against Tom Brady, too, if I remember right.
Of course he did. Good for him, good for the Eagles. But I remember that year, the team starts out 4-0. Now, clearly that's different.
Yeah.
But then kind of the story flips and changes where the offensive line, was it
Jake Long?
You had TJ Clemmings,
Jeremiah Searles. I think it was kind of those three kind of rotating through two tackle spots.
Oh, my goodness, because Matt Khalil, the final year of his deal, I think, tears his MCL early. I think
Week
both
2.
He and Adrian Peterson in that Packers, the building opener at U.S. Bank Stadium, both of them have MCL injuries.
Correct.
And just every time you felt you would get traction that season, there was a setback.
Yeah.
Long, by the way, I think he tears his Achilles while they're driving to try and tie the game at FedEx.
Yep.
Between MetLife Stadium and FedEx Field, by the way, has any other venue claimed more knees and Achilles than those two sporting venues?
Yeah.
It's insane.
There was a little bit of that going on. I mean, more knees, but U.S. Bank Stadium had a little bit of that, and that's, I think, part of the reason they replaced the turf is that slit film surface was one of those things that a lot of teams got rid of, and they got rid of it at U.S. Bank. But
was that the bit with Jefferson's hammy?
Yeah.
In that Chiefs game maybe 2 years ago too?
Yep.
'Cause they were talking about the turf?
Yes, it was that. It was Dalvin Cook. It was, I think,
Dalvin,
Mike Hughes had one. There were a number of those, and that's not just them. I mean, that particular style of turf went out of fashion because of some of those things around the league. But yes, in terms of Vikings players, those two stadiums that you mentioned, FedEx and MetLife, have had quite a few of them over the years. And that 2016 season, the story of the whole year was offensive line stuff. I remember looking up numbers in the middle of that season. This was back when I was at ESPN, so I had access to all of their big stat databases and looking up like yards before contact for their running game that year. They were like one of the worst teams that ESPN Stats and Information had tracked in the past 10 years in terms of getting any space for their running backs to operate. And it's just like you can't do what you want to do in that situation. It became, dump offs to Stephon Diggs were essentially long runs. I mean, it was a lot of that kind of stuff. They just had to figure out how to work around it.
Yeah.
They're not to that point yet, and I don't think any of these injuries are. We haven't talked about anything so dire that everybody's going to be out for the year with these things. You're not talking about the same timetable with the offensive line, but they're having to manage through a lot right now, and I think you see some parallels. I mean, 2016 was on my mind when you started the conversation because it does have some notes of that, I think, in what they're going through right now.
I don't know if you fall in love with names. Sometimes I just like, especially as you get older, and you've covered this team in this league for a long time, so a lot of names have come and gone through your reporting. But just listen to this: 2016 snap counts: Andre Smith, Matt Khalil, Rashad Hill. How can I forget about Rashad?
Rashad Hill was great.
Jeremiah Searles, you mentioned him.
Yep.
Jake Long and TJ Clemmings, we hit that. But then you roll into
Joe Berger, probably.
Oh, you nailed it. Joe Berger. Zach Kieran.
Oh, boy. Zach Kieran played?
He did. He played, as a matter of fact, only 118 snaps, but when he was needed, he was called upon. Now, brace yourself. Willie Beavers.
Oh, gosh.
He only had 11 snaps.
Yeah.
So even as destitute as things were for that offensive line, Willie could only stumble his way into 11 snaps.
This was the 4th-round pick they cut in training camp and then must have brought back sometime during the middle of the year.
I think it was.
Yeah.
And there was some, and just from minute one, like he was the 320th out of 320 available interior offensive linemen that particular year, PFF style. Alex Boone.
Yep.
Alex Boone, by all accounts, played 83% of the snaps.
Yes.
Appreciate your service, Alex.
Yep.
Brandon Fusco.
Yep.
And Nick Easton.
Yeah.
That's your offensive line in 2016. And now just, again, like I'm glad you mentioned it because as of now, knock on whatever this particular synthetic material with some particle board underneath
There's going to be some wood in there somewhere.
There's wood in there somewhere, knock on wood, that we don't see that. But thus far through 4 games, that's what comes to my mind is, just by nature of following the team, doing shows at the facility, and you obviously covering the team.
Yeah.
Like, we have to know who Joe Huber is.
Yes.
Well, Joe Huber's not supposed to be playing snaps.
No.
And no offense to Joe. Best of luck to him in his career. And someday I hope he starts for 10 years for us.
Yeah.
You should not be playing snaps in Dublin. Juergens ain't ready.
No.
And Justin School, PA, I heard him talking yesterday. He thought, just watching the game back, that he felt School had a better effort in the second half, particular late stages against the Steelers than what we saw on the left side the first two games. But still not up to snuff. And that's just really worrisome. And that kind of, I hate focusing on injuries, but in the same sense, I feel like you have a hard time judging Carson Wentz. You have a hard time judging what we did or didn't get out of Jordan Mason. You have a hard time judging really everything in totality with the offense when we're talking about that carousel that we're experiencing on the Minnesota Moving Company.
Yeah, and I think you can even say that to an extent with J.J. McCarthy, because a lot of the talk of those first couple of games is he seeing things quickly enough? Is he able to process through coverages? There are some things there that he needs to do better. Certainly, I mean, getting rid of the ball quicker needs to be something he does better. But it's also worth noting that he didn't play at all with Christian Darrisaw. He had those two games with Justin School at left tackle, and he's either running for his life or probably having a little bit of that mindset of, I need to get out of here and protect myself. And that's something they have to coach out of him. But it is difficult to do that when the places you get a chance to put it into practice, there are defenders at your feet, defenders in your face all the time. It affects the way you do everything. And I do think injuries on the offensive line, I mean, people don't want to use them as an excuse, and I'm not trying to say that. I think the reason that it becomes such a big problem is football is still, that ability to reestablish the line of scrimmage in the run game or hold up in pass protection is a major factor in why you win or why you don't. I mean, if you're going to look at anybody with this, who has been the standard bearer in the NFC the last 3 or 4 years, and maybe even a little bit longer than that? The Philadelphia Eagles.
And what do?
They invest in their offensive line, and they've done it very well for a very long time. And you see that. I mean, they've played in 3 Super Bowls and won 2. We talked about that game at US Bank Stadium. That was a regime ago, and they've won 2 of them, right? Or, well, I'm trying to think. They won the
2017 season.
Yep, and then last year.
They went 2 years ago, was it 22?
Yeah, they lost.
Went and lost to Mahomes.
Yep.
And then they went last year and beat Mahomes.
Yeah. Yep. So they played in 3, won 2 of them.
With 2 different regimes.
And different quarterbacks.
Different quarterbacks, different skill players.
Yeah.
A large part of the defense behind the respective line has looked different, of course, now than it was in 2017. Yeah, they've been able to change a lot while maintaining that one constant right there in the trench.
Jason Kelsey, who's retired obviously now, but Lane Johnson. I mean, that line has been the constant for them, and it's why they're able to run the ball so well now. And I think when you lose those players, because you need that group to work as a unit, and it's so hard to develop them now because you get all these guys that are in college systems that it's spread offense, it's 1-2 steps, throw it, or maybe it's RPO, something's over the middle, but you're not asking offensive linemen to pass protect more than a couple of seconds, and you're not typically in systems where you're trying to move downhill in the run game that much. You're just asking offensive linemen to play a different style of football than you do in the NFL. Yeah. It's why you see schools like Wisconsin and Iowa and Michigan, probably under Jim Harbaugh especially, crank out so many NFL offensive linemen because they're playing something that actually translates. When you're not coming from those schools, quite often you're playing something different, and the ability to draft and develop and turn offensive linemen into capable NFL starters or even contributors is really tough. So when you lose guys, you probably don't have the depth to survive it very often, and we see a lot of that happening.
You can get by with 1.
Right. You can.
Not 3, though.
No, not 3. I mean, there's a reason that last year, when they're playing as well as they did and Christian Darrisaw goes down, they immediately say, okay, we've got to go out and make a deal to get a left tackle, because even if he's not perfect, we need somebody who's not going to tank our season, because you lose your left tackle quite often. That is what happens. So they're not to that degree yet, but it changes a lot of what you're able to do and a lot of how you operate when you don't have an offensive line that can kind of set the standard up front.
Well, and the focal point last couple of days, too, has kind of been not just the injuries itself. Like if we knew that preferred 5 that we saw at the end of the game was going to be the preferred 5 going into the game, you develop a game plan based off of that. Losing these guys midstream, whether it's the concussion to Kelly, and now we're worried. I mean, there are atopics of life that mean more from a head health perspective than playing football. So how do they handle him? But losing Brian O'Neill in particular and having to jump in, like, because adjustments, and, I don't know whether it's doing your video stuff and your podcast. A lot of people hitting you with bits these days. And I'm sure they're hitting you with the general manager. His drafting expertise is a disaster. And playing into kind of the conversation around developing the O-line. Another end of it is, hey, why can't we just adjust and go quick? Do tempo and some of these things. And I'm just thinking midstream in an NFL game, when we're changing that amount of personnel in such a pivotal spot, in some ways, I don't know if there's a lot of change on the fly that can be done. Yeah.
And some of the quick game stuff, Wes Phillips got into this a week ago, that quick game is kind of where everybody's mind goes, but quick game also requires timing between quarterback and receiver in a way that, I mean, there's a lot of this offense that's timing based, but quick game stuff can be particularly precise with that because you have to get a couple of steps, the ball's out, the receiver has to be ready. You probably got to get blockers if it's a screen type thing for a receiver. And then obviously with a running back, you're going to have pullers coming out there to screen as well. So there are a lot of pieces that have to operate effectively together. And you're just talking about a lot of people that haven't done this before in these roles or even maybe at all in practice, because you have guys coming in for the first time and people playing next to somebody new. There's not that chemistry. There's not that trust because, I mean, players talk about timing all the time, and we kind of, our eyes glaze over a little bit when you hear people talk about timing and chemistry, but it is that thing of, okay, I am taking 2 steps. The ball is coming out in 1.7 seconds, and I need you to be right here. I need this to, I mean, this works like a watch in some ways where all of these parts have to do their exact job at the exact time or something gets thrown off. And you don't see what the parts are doing underneath the surface of the watch. But there's a reason watchmakers are so precise, is that all of these parts have to work together extremely precisely and extremely consistently. And if you don't have it, it's like, well, what's going on with this thing? So there's a little bit of that with quick game too. I think it becomes a little tougher to pull off. And I also just think, I mean, there's parts of Kevin O'Connell's offense. He wants to push the ball downfield. Yeah. And this question of how much does that have to adapt when you don't have the ability to do it, I think is a valid question. I think that's going to continue to come up. But if you have quick game stuff that you say, well, let's try this, it doesn't work. All right, now it's 2nd and 8. Then do you run the ball on 2nd and 8 or do you go back to something else? Okay. It's very easy to get your entire drive thrown off pretty quickly if you're not executing. And that's, I think, what he comes back to a lot is we can do this stuff, but if it doesn't work, then all of a sudden I'm throwing my playbook out the window and I'm in my 3rd and long menu, which is not very long and it's not going to work very often, especially with the pressure up front. So now we're punting. Is that better? I mean, this is kind of the conundrum that they face.
Yeah, indeed. You mentioned kind of the intricacies of these plays, and it's kind of funny. Kind of the cliche or the stereotype, these guys are just big, dumb athletes. Yeah. And that does, I'm not trying to sell the idea that they are all Rhodes scholars. Right. However, the intricacies of some of these plays, I was just doing fan line with Ron Johnson on Sunday, and he's talking about like this bang A route. Yep. Okay. So, and if he believes, Cowboys. He believes that's what DK was running on that 80-yard touchdown. And you have in a zone spot where Pace has to pull to the flat, Wilson comes up, and maybe the positioning of Wilson in that spot could be up to question. But in the end, we just didn't tackle the freaking guy. Yeah. As big as he is, I get it. But just the intricacies of it, when you're running this route, Ron's telling me, well, it's 7 steps, but you have to line it up so it's 4 with your left and 3 with your right, so then you can push off your left, or it's 3 with your left and 4 with your right, and you push off with your right. Yeah. There is actually a lot of technical aspects to even just running a route. Yes. And that's just one guy on the field who then needs to know exactly, okay, well, I'm DK. I know where I'm going to be. I also need to know where Calvin Austin's going to be, because we've seen issues where receivers run routes that are too close to each other, and that ends up being disastrous.
Vikings had one of those on Sunday.
Yes, they did, as a matter of fact. But the intricacies that goes into the offense just kind of is captivating is a little hyperbolic, but it's really fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Once you dig into the weeds of how they put this together and drill it down.
Yeah. I mean, you think back to the interception, the pick six that J.J. McCarthy threw in Chicago. Justin Jefferson, when we talked to him a couple days later, he said that was actually on me. I needed to go through one more revolution. In other words, one more set of steps with both my right and left foot to get where I was supposed to be, because J.J. threw that ball expecting that I'm going to be far enough into my progression, into my route, that it's going to hit there on time. Instead, Jefferson got there 2 steps too early, and the ball is on his inside shoulder when it's supposed to be on his outside. So he basically said the timing on that was off was my fault. And J.J. McCarthy throws the pick, and of course it goes back for the touchdown, and that was the big moment in that game, at least when it looked like they were going to lose that game. But it's another example of all of this stuff takes time. And then, you can ask the questions about, okay, well, why did they sit all the starters out of the preseason? I think the question of how they're getting enough work time on the field is a valid one. And I think that stuff comes up, but it's also, if you lose a starter like that in the preseason, then everybody's going to say, well, why are you playing these guys in the preseason? So it's a catch-22 there. But the fact that you had a lot of guys, whether Jefferson or Christian Darrisaw or Ryan Kelly with a little bit of elbow stuff in the preseason, you just had a lot of pieces of this offense that weren't on the field together, even in training camp.
Yep.
And I think you see some of that stuff show up here too.
You do. How do you handle this and balance it in your reporting? Because I think about it just in, your job covering the team. I wouldn't say our jobs are different, but I don't try to portray myself as something I'm not.
Sure.
The insiding work and the things that you do for what your job is different than mine.
Sure.
And a lot of reactionary and just kind of building this thing back together, kind of truncated, of course, on a weekly basis into what just happened, what's going to happen.
Right.
It's through 4 games. How do you balance, again, got to fire the GM, got to draft better. Okay, well, guess what, guys? It's October 1st.
Yeah.
So and the
GM decided a contract extension.
So fan frustration with things that aren't going the right way is pure and sacred and valid. Totally appreciate and respect it.
Yeah.
But it's trying to balance, like, can we have like a Quasey conversation in January? Can we talk about maybe, even and let's keep it on the front plate, but next July when we're having training camp, I wonder if Kevin O'Connell, if there was anything to be learned from how he handled J.J. McCarthy in preseason, do we get more reps from the starters? Like that would be like an into training camp type of conversation or even season in memoriam. Like it's tough to balance. We can't go backwards and change the preseason reps. It is kind of valid if it plays into what we're seeing now, but still it's like, well, I need to know, I got to see if we can beat the Browns with Joe Huber. Like I got to figure out if we could do that. I'm trying to balance these talkers. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the thing is, the team is not thinking about that stuff right now. I mean, when you'll hear Kevin O'Connell talk about, I'm sure this will come up after this week's game, doing the self-scout in the bye week, or they go back through the entire season once it's done. Okay, what did we do? What did we not do well enough? What do we need to change? That's the time of year where the introspection on those things is going to happen from the front office, the coaching staff, all the people in that building. They're not thinking about this in week 4. They're thinking about, all right, what do we have to do to get ready to beat the Browns on Sunday? Because when that game ends, people will celebrate it and kind of enjoy the win, or you kind of lick your wounds from the loss. But then Monday, it's watch film, make corrections. You started the game plan for the next team immediately with the coaches so that they have it ready to go for players to present on Wednesday morning, go through the practice week. That's how a week in the NFL works. There's not a lot of time in there to sit there and say, well, should we have done more in the preseason in August at this point? And we can talk about it. I think that's kind of for all of us who are around the orbit of this stuff, or on the outside, as you will hear teams usually call it. That's fine. We can have those conversations. I think those are valid things to discuss, and it's worth chewing on and worth deliberating about. But I think we also have to understand that these are things that are not going to effectuate any changes until next year, if at all, because the people that have to make these decisions are working off information that not the rest of us have either. And that's why we ask questions and try to learn as much as we can. But you have to understand that we when we're talking about these kinds of things, we are beating them to the punch in some ways because they're not thinking about these things right now. They just don't have the brain space to do it because everything else is taking up so much time.
Yeah, I just, I couldn't picture in a press conference if I asked Kevin O'Connell, hey, you ever think about those preseason reps?
Yeah.
I just don't think at this stage that he would offer me, his classic 90-second super eloquent and thoughtful answer. And just kind of just focus on beating the Browns right now.
Yeah. It'd be a lot of, that's probably something we need to think about, but that'll be a discussion for the offseason. We'll go back and look at all. I mean, it would be something like that.
February.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Ask again later, like the Magic 8 Ball would say.
Let's pause and then just kind of some newsy things popping from London that I want your opinion on. I know the head coach himself, actually, I believe, is speaking to those that are overseas right now.
Right now, yes.
And we are rolling on it. So final segment of the hour, I'm actually going to replay a good portion of that press conference for anything that is funky with what the head coach is saying to the media. So we'll dig into that. But one more short segment with Ben Goessling, thanks to Standard Heating and Air around the corner. It's 9 to noon.
Before we go, the fan and 2 men in a junk truck want to give you a shot to win bonus bucks with the National Cash Contest. Head to KFAN.com. Keyword is credit. Keyword credit. KFAN.com. Keyword credit.
PA joining top of the hour from London because we are going to play for you some of Kevin O'Connell's press conference. And in studio now, I can see the twitch occurring. There's a bit he's getting itchy because he's in studio with me, Ben Goessling, the Star Tribune. He's not in London. Andrew Kramer, your colleague, is over there covering the squad right now and doing a bang-up job for the Star Tribune, startribune.com. But courtesy of Standard Heating and Cooling, Ben Goessling is here with us. Ben Goessling via X. Just kind of some nuts and bolts of things. This Van Ginkel neck thing is kind of worrisome. It's good times, bad times. You saw with the Wild yesterday. Kaprizov, get the contract done. But also Zuccarello is going to be out for 2 months.
Yeah.
I see that the practice window for C.J. Ham has opened up. So the ability for him to get back into the mix, pass protection, potentially, some help on the way from C.J., but now Van Ginkel in this neck, and it's worrisome. O'Neal's week to week. Again, focusing on injuries, I get it, but Van Ginkel in particular is one that I'm just watching with a keen eye.
Yeah, because he played 8 snaps in that Bengals game, but he had 2 sacks in those 8. I mean, even that little bit of time, it's like, okay, this guy makes a big impact on what they do right away, and I think they miss him. I think the fact that they looked as dominant as they did against the Bengals. I mean, they had a number of things go right there. Certainly, you're playing Jake Browning, Harrison Smith is back. The defense gets more multiple, it gets more kind of deceptive, duplicitous when they're at closer to full capacity. They still don't have Blake Cashman either. But yes, Van Ginkel, I think for how many different ways they like to use him, we saw it in the game in London last year. He, fakes a blitz basically. I mean, that's his job on the play is to engage the rusher and then drop back into coverage to make their protection react and make Aaron Rodgers think, okay, I got to throw hot. So he does that, jumps back into the throwing lane, picks it off, takes it to 63 yards for a touchdown. He's capable of making those types of plays because he's that good at seeing it, recognizing it, understanding how to manipulate it. Those are things that go beyond just, okay, next man up. We got to put somebody else in here. He has skill sets, and some of these players do. I think I would put Harrison Smith in this category as well. There are certain guys that do certain things that you can't replace.
Right.
Because it's just a skill set that they've acquired or it's just something innately that they do really well. That's what makes them unique. That's why they get paid what they get paid, because there is a level of productivity and a level of skill that's beyond your average kind of next man up. And I know they want to do that, and there's times where you can make it work, but there are special players, and I think he is one of those in this defense that when they're on the field, they make a big difference. And when you don't have him, I think you notice it.
Would you agree that two things can be true, that Van Ginkel is essential to Flores' group and Dallas Turner is not a bust?
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Where two things can be true at the same time.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think when they drafted Dallas Turner, they're thinking about that as a long-term thing too, because you're talking about Van Ginkel is already 30, I believe, and Jonathan Grenard is 28, 29. You're never thinking about just one thing when you make a draft pick like that. It's not just, hey, we need somebody now. It's what about in 3 years when we have guys that we're probably looking to move on from or move the salary around, and you need somebody that's entering their prime where it's, okay, he's still on a rookie deal, but he's producing at the peak of his powers because he's still young and that extra half step that you have at that age is still there. So I think there are both of those things going on. They like the fact that they have the complement of players that they do, but I don't think the Dallas Turner pick is made solely in relation to the players they have now. I think this is a little bit for the future as well.
Would you, just some quickies here. Would you almost rather face Flacco on Sunday versus Dylan Gabriel? I know Flores is apparently 5-0 against rookies.
Yeah.
Now, and he actually, the technicality, he started a few games last year. Michael Penix, I thought for the most part, Vikings, and maybe it's because Bijan got loose, but, kept Penix in a spot where he was not explosive.
Right.
He was not changing that game. Of course, the $170 on the ground, the Falcons got kind of told that story.
Yeah,
but
Bijan Robinson changed that game.
But it's almost like I feel like I kind of want to see Flacco. This Dylan Gabriel kind of offers some unknowns that make me uncomfortable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a difference there, and they've seen Flacco a couple of times in different settings over the last few years. I think they saw him last year with the Colts when he ends up starting that game. But yeah, it's Gabriel has a different skill set, and I think it's a little more unpredictable. I can see what you're saying. I also think that Brian Flores against rookie quarterbacks is a real thing because Brian Flores does things that people haven't practiced and prepared for, and they don't know what's coming. And we see it with, his team tried to do some of this to J.J. McCarthy. It's all right. You haven't seen you don't have a catalog that's as deep as Aaron Rodgers, where it's okay. I saw this look back here, and the borderline photographic memory that Rodgers has, and you see this from a lot of quarterbacks. I remember Kirk Cousins talking about this, where I saw this blitz. This is Jonathan Gannon. It looks like something the Eagles ran last year, and I need to throw the ball here. Like all of that processing that goes on for quarterbacks that have done this for a really long time and, fractions of seconds. Young quarterbacks don't have that because the Rolodex isn't there, and it's just, okay, well, I think it's this, but maybe it's this. And all that time you're deliberating, okay, now there's a rusher in my face, and I got to, dump the ball or get out of here. So I think the effects that Flores has on young quarterbacks, I see the point with saying, you'd almost rather see Flacco, but I think he's been good enough against young QBs, and we saw Jake Browning too.
Yeah.
I think that's a real thing. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes, but I think it helps them.
Browning had no chance. And hopefully that's Dylan Gabriel this weekend. JJ might be getting on the field. That's kind of cool. I mean, Carson did his thing in the Bengals game, under siege a bit, and I'm sure they're picking apart that film as they move forward here, but plan seems to still be the plan. That Mr. McCarthy, when he's healthy, it sounds like he'll be handling business from there on out.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of this conversation about if Carson Wentz takes them on a run, but I thought Wentz did a lot of good things on Sunday, especially late in the comeback, made a couple of nice throws on the run, but this is still about J.J. McCarthy. I mean, this needs to be the thing they figure out in this season, and I also think if they were going to say no, or at least kind of limit their interest in Daniel Jones, looking at how good he's been, limit their interest in Sam Darnold, looking at how good he's been, limit their interest in Aaron Rodgers, given the fact that he wanted to be here. I mean, there's no doubt Aaron Rodgers wanted to be here, but they were only willing to go so far in the conversation. When you're doing that, I don't know that you're going to say, okay, well, it's been a couple of games. He's been a little rough. Let's move to Carson Wentz full time. I understand the tension of that, but this is still about J.J. McCarthy and trying to figure out what they have in him and trying to win as they develop him. But yes, I think we will see him get back to probably running the scout team a little bit this week. And then once he's healthy, him getting back out there seems like it's going to be the plan. Last
thing I have for you, and I'm sure you've gotten this question. I was just inundated with it because whether it was Fan Line and then Monday reacting to the game, and again, talking about the offensive line, talking about the health. It's just, can we please get healthy? I hate talking about injuries. It's crazy. But there was kind of the idea of, well, there's no way that they would put him out there with that line because he's going to be seeing ghosts. You're going to ruin his career. And then it was like, they just like let Carson keep playing. Like Carson's Wentz, like, I don't want to get beaten into the ground either.
Nobody does.
I think that the plan is the plan, and they just, in combo or concert with that, they gotta find something that works up front and keep number 9 upright the best they can when he's ready.
Yeah, and I think Donovan Jackson will probably be ready after the bye. I would expect that
Man, has he been a dude, by the way, though?
He's been really good.
Among the positives, he's been fantastic. Terrific draft pick.
Yep, I think so far that's a big win for them, and I would expect he's back. And then, if you're able to get O'Neal back after the bye, the Ryan Kelly question is going to be the big one. And like you say, that's a larger question when you have that many concussions, and how that's going to go is something to watch, because I think Michael Juergens being in there is a lot different than having a veteran center in there, especially with a young quarterback. But yes, I think once McCarthy gets back, it could also coincide with a number of these linemen being healthier, which will help him out too, because you have Christian Darrisaw in there. If he, continues to be healthy, that's not something McCarthy's played with yet either. So I think there's probably a path to make it so that he's back there and not getting killed in the way that he did over those first couple of games, and the way that Carson Wentz did on Sunday.
I really appreciate you flying back to the United States and dealing with the long layover and connecting flight and delays and everything.
Yeah.
Just to be on 9 to noon
Absolutely.
today.
It was funny. I think I was one of 70 people that was trying to get back to Minneapolis. We got a 4-hour delay out of Amsterdam. It was me and a bunch of Vikings fans. I think a couple of Vikings officials, including Karen Nelson, Rosie's wife.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Was caught up in that flight as well. So Delta's kind of like, well, all right, choose your own adventure, figure it out. And I ended up having an unplanned night in Amsterdam where I've never been. So I figured out how to get myself downtown, learned enough words of Dutch to understand some of the signs, which was not very much, but then, rented a bicycle, did the whole Amsterdam bicycle thing.
You did bike. Okay.
I did. Just a little, I biked for a couple hours, kind of seeing some of the sights around Amsterdam, and then took the bike back and figured, okay, we'll go home and get on the plane. But I was thinking about that, because it was like, okay, I'm supposed to be on with Nordo yesterday, and then we rescheduled that for today, and then also had a haircut appointment yesterday. I was like, I need to get back for that. I really need a haircut.
Which may have been the atopic of atopics. Above all else, we got to keep that hair fresh.
Yeah, it was time for that.
If you ever get the chance, though, because you just had the day, the biking's cool, the canals. The museums are sweet, and they got a Rembrandt museum, the Rijks Museum, big Van Gogh presence, of course, and some of that. Like Amsterdam, actually, and
seems like a cool town.
It is super cool.
Yeah,
and it's a soft landing too. You may have run into some Dutch or language gaps. Most people I found do speak English.
It was funny. You're just reading signs, but as soon as somebody will greet you in Dutch, but as soon as you respond in English, they go, "Oh, okay. You speak English, I'll just switch it." I remember that in Montreal when I was covering hockey too. It's like, man, this is impressive that people are just able to go conversationally from one to the other as soon as they hear one word. And okay, I'll switch to accommodate you.
I'm sitting here on Google Translate trying to ask where the bathroom is.
Yeah, it's the fact that people are able to do that and be multilingual that effectively is certainly impressive. So yes, the Dutch folks I ran into were very happy to switch to English to accommodate my lack of multilingual nature.
That's Ben Goessling, Star Tribune, StarTribune.com. Looking forward, whether it's Access Vikings and podcasts, and just follow this thing onto the Browns this weekend. Andrew Kramer, Emily Leiker, just the gang's all here.
Yep.
For the Minnesota Vikings with the Star Tribune. Also, thanks to Standard Heating and Air for bringing you Ben Goessling on a weekly basis. When we return, we'll hear a truncated portion of Kevin O'Connell's press conference to the media taking place within the last 20 minutes or so. And then we're going to check in with PA. The host is in London, and he's going to take the wheel here at the top of the hour. It's Nordo in for PA 9 to noon. Coach, Minnesota Vikings, Kevin O'Connell addressing the media less than a half hour ago, and Brett Blakemore producing 9 to noon, enterprising enough to record and roll on it. So let's hear what the head coach had to say just earlier this hour over in London with the assembled media.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's good to see you guys. I wanted to start out today and just make sure I mention the first time of probably many, the Hanbury Manor staff here, just how much they're taking great care of us and feels like a very much normal week of preparation for us. Great field, great setup, great meeting rooms, and then obviously to have everybody under one roof and enjoying this time together. It's been first class all the way around. This will be our third time playing at Tottenham Stadium. Very much excited about that. It's a very, very unique, special venue, and we've enjoyed both of our previous opportunities and very much looking forward to seeing all of the great fans in the stadium, as well as the many who will have traveled from Minnesota and from the United States to watch us play over here. It's special for everybody to get to come to the United Kingdom and see hopefully a very competitive football game with two great teams. So excited about it, and with that, I'll turn it over to you guys. Yeah, it's good to see you.
Could you speak about JJ McCarthy? Any update on the plan with him? He's a hybrid day. You're trying to get back on.
Yeah, so we had a little bit of a hybrid day. We got some full speed work. We got some extra volume of reps and slowed the tempo down a little bit. JJ's working his way back. He is kind of entering the next phase of his rehab where he can get a little bit more active, and looking forward to getting him back on the field practicing with the team as soon as we can. But at the same time, we want to be really smart and make sure we let that high ankle fully heal, and then he can really start attacking it and working his technique and fundamentals and get reacclimated, which I think he'll do pretty quickly.
And you must have seen he's also from Cleveland this morning about changing that and start quarterback.
Yep.
Your game plan for this week.
Well, I think, obviously, Joe's a veteran quarterback and he's seen just about everything in the NFL. That doesn't mean that, they've got a great staff and a great group there. So they'll have Dylan prepared to play against our defense and the challenge that could be. Did a lot of work, just throughout the draft process, getting to learn about the player, and obviously had a tremendous college career. And I think the big thing when I think about Dylan is just he can make all the throws. He's got really unique athleticism, quickness in the pocket to evade the rush, and has always been able to make plays on schedule and also be a weapon off schedule. So we're going to have to make sure we can adapt to that athleticism and still find a way to contain him while defending one of the better run games in the league and some really talented skill players as well. So it's going to be a challenge for Flo and his group and our players. And, they've off to a great start with their preparation. We had a really good day today, and we'll just keep working towards Sunday.
Coach, despite the result of the weekend, looking back, maybe the way Steelers played might have disguised how well Vikings did play, and when we look back, there were openings there that maybe people still able to take advantage of and really taking that game right down to why perhaps winning. Did you feel good about the way you played?
Yeah, what I didn't feel good about is, not being able to sustain some of the positive, momentum we could have had early on in the game. And what I mean by that is, we're moving the ball. Defense gets a stop. We're moving the ball pretty well to start the game. And then we have a kind of a self-inflicted penalty as we got down into the red zone, forced a 2nd and long, and then into a 3rd and longer than it should have been. And they get us off the field, and we end up settling for 3 points right there. I think the big thing is sustaining momentum, when you can get off to a good start in the game is big for our team. And then really as we tried to navigate, offensively, some of the injuries as they popped up, Brian O'Neill was hurt on that first field goal attempt, and then we're kind of started the day of kind of making adjustments and things on the fly. What I did like was, I did think we had some opportunities. Some we hit, some we didn't. They were able to get some pressure on us as well, but I did like the way our guys just kept playing. There were some big stops there late by our defense to give us an opportunity, and we were able to manufacture a way to really, when you look at it, we're 1st and 10 at our own 40-yard line, down 3 points. You would sign up with that, or sign up for that many times against a really good team like that. I thought the Steelers played well. I thought they had a great plan, and they got the better of us. And that's what happens when you don't play at your best against any NFL team. It's going to be a very difficult road to find a way to win. You still might be able to do it. We had our chances. We just didn't get it done. But I think there's a lot on that tape that we can pull out of, what is now an adverse situation coming off of a loss. We're away from home. But I think our guys are attacking this the right way, trying to pull that positive out while understanding we've got to continue to improve as a team. Yeah, I think we've, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I know me personally, I've really enjoyed it. I thought we, handled the first trip the right way. I thought our guys had energy. The atmosphere at Croke Park was a special one, despite being the road team. But you could feel the energy in the building and the excitement, and we kind of although we didn't execute as well as maybe we wanted to for 4 quarters, I thought our guys handled that first phase of the Triple L, and we're already significantly into the second phase of that now, where we get a normal week of preparation on site here and then going to a place that we've played 2 games at. So between the routine of the week and then the familiarity of Tottenham and the great venue that is in front of some awesome fans, I think we're very much looking forward to continuing and then finishing off this week the right way.
How have you and the coach with the players spent the last couple of days?
Say that again?
How have you spent the last few days here, and what have you been up to since you've been there?
I would not be the most fun person to follow around. We have been, as a staff, we're normally Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are pretty much before the sun comes up to well after it goes down. We put a lot of work in to obviously make sure we handle ourselves coming out of the game the right way, where we truly absorb all the things we need to continue to work on, continue to do better. What are things we're doing well that maybe we can continue to do and find different ways to do. And then as we get a chance to, start working with our players and have a full day today, tomorrow, and Friday, we'll have our hands full. But I would say I'm very thankful for the first-class treatment we're getting here at Hanbury, because this is where I'll be. So.
Head coach Kevin O'Connell addressing the media, and very impressed with with the accommodations over there at Hanbury. So that's good news. And team's going to practice today, or has already practiced. Excuse me. So some news coming out of that. Michael Juergens, we got to find out. Wrap on the leg. He was in the tent, I believe, in Sunday's game against the Steelers. So this health thing, man. This health thing, we're just trying to win games, just trying to get here and just trying to field a team of 11 on offense, 11 on defense, and that problem persists. But when we return, let's check in with the host. It's his show. PA's in London, and I think he's joined by a special guest, one of our favorites as well on site. So final hour ahead, we're going to check in with PA, get the host perspective, and continue on 9 to noon, final hour on The Fan.